Item E, receive report and provide direction related to proposed ordinance regarding dangerous fireworks. City Attorney Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as you probably know from the number of years that you've been discussing fireworks, the state preempts the regulation of fireworks. It has something called the State Fireworks Law, and the state shares some, but not all of its authority with local entities in terms of regulating fireworks. It does, in fact, the state law does, in fact, authorize cities to ban or to regulate the sale, use, and discharge of fireworks. And as you know, in 2005, as a result of that authority, the city brought forward Measure G, asking the voters whether they wanted to approve that use, and in fact they said yes. And those regulations are now contained in our Chapter 6.50, which allows the use of safe and sane fireworks. This evening I'm bringing forward to you a different proposed ordinance on a related topic, which is to create a new chapter to deal with dangerous fireworks. Now, no voter approval is required for this because it was not the subject of the enactment before the voters. It's a different topic. And this ordinance relates to three different things, which I will ask for the City Council's direction on. One deals with dangerous fireworks under 25 pounds or less. The second part of it deals with making the sale, use, or discharge of dangerous fireworks illegal under city law. And the third part is consideration of whether to ban or to allow the display, a public display of fireworks pursuant to a permit. Turning first to the topic of dangerous fireworks, 25 pounds or less. Now, as indicated before, the state regulates the entire area of dangerous fireworks, but last year the state introduced a new law, SB 839, which was intended to do a number of things. Mostly it was intended to target the distribution of illegal and large amounts of fireworks. And so there was a whole new penalty scheme that was put forward, increasing the fines where people have possession of fireworks in 50 pounds, 100 pounds, and so on. And those fines go up to $50,000 plus jail time, so some pretty serious stuff. But one of the things that that law also did, which is important to you, is it authorizes local jurisdictions to issue administrative citations to people who are in possession of 25 pounds or less of dangerous fireworks. Now, formally, this authority was reserved only to the state, and it was would normally be a misdemeanor and handled through a prosecution by the district attorney's office. It's my understanding that there was some concern that perhaps district attorneys across the state weren't that excited about prosecuting some of the lesser violations, and so it was sort of leaving a gap in the enforcement. So now the state has said, okay, cities, instead of the district attorney prosecuting those cases, cities may actually issue a citation to violators for the possession of those dangerous fireworks. So that's a very new thing that has been allowed. Now, the benefit to the city is that it kind of closes that gap that the prosecutions that aren't occurring leaves open. And it also allows for cost recovery to the cities, because the cities by this statute are allowed to retain the fine amount minus a piece of that that goes to the state fire marshal to compensate the fire marshal for disposal of those dangerous fireworks. And that's different than how the cost recovery normally works when there are criminal fines administered, where by state law 65% of the fine would normally go into the state treasury and only 35% would come back to the local entity. So that's a little bit different. So if the city council is amenable to moving forward with this, one of the issues that I would also want to resolve are the amounts of the resolution, the amounts of the administrative citations that you would authorize. The direction that I would need would be really as pertains to the first and second offense, whether you wanted to make that the maximum amount or some lesser amount. My view is that the maximum amount that the city can allow is $1,000. Now, there are some cities that impose fines that are of greater amounts. I'm not going to walk you through the tortured reasoning for the conclusion that I have that the state law is really clear that $1,000 is the max, unless you ask me to, and then I'll happily do so. But in the absence of that, $1,000 is what I find to be the maximum. And that's also similar to what Pacifica does. They set their maximum fines at $1,000 as well. And that is a city that, like ourselves, allows for the use of safe and sane fireworks, and also has a similar provision as to the one that I'm proposing this evening. The second issue is really more minor compared to the 25 pounds, but it is just to clarify that the sale, use, or discharge of dangerous fireworks in the city of San Bruno is illegal. That's already illegal. Possessing those fireworks are already illegal under state law, so it's sort of just a complement to state law. It doesn't really add anything to it. It just means that if there is a violation for possession of dangerous fireworks that are over 25 pounds, that could be prosecuted by the state. It would also leave the city the option of issuing an administrative fine or having a city prosecution. Lastly, there's the issue of public display. And the reason I bring this up is that the state law allows the state fire marshal to license qualified persons to perform displays of dangerous fireworks. And there are different kinds of permits that are allowed depending on the type of display and how many times the display will occur. And it occurred to me that there might be a possible loophole that would be left open if we didn't address this one way or the other. And that would be whether the city council preferred to ban that, or whether, or not allow it, or whether the city council preferred to leave the possibility of that open through a permit process. If you left it open but didn't have a permit process, then you'd be leaving all of the authority just with the fire marshal to issue permits without the city having a say over that. So we probably should make a decision, not allowed, or allowed under some circumstances with a permit. As drafted in the proposed ordinance, if it were allowed, staff would be recommending that it only be allowed for a large event, not for something like a block party. But I do need to stop and say that I need to be very clear there that our police chief and our fire chief, they were not excited about this provision whatsoever. And it was their feeling that not only was there no place that this display could occur in San Bruno, considering all the dangers that they were seeing, but it might add more chaos to the event as it is. So I wanted to make their positions very, very clear to you. So at this time, I wanted to see if the City Council had any questions for me. If you are amenable to this ordinance, I would bring it back, and probably with a few adjustments. There are a couple of things that I realized I should make similar to our safe and sane chapter, such as supervision of minors and liability for that. One issue that was also raised by somebody who provided a letter was whether the city wanted to include a provision that would make landlords liable for what their tenants were doing on their property with respect to fireworks. I'm not sure how much I embrace that, but I raised the issue for your consideration.
Comments from council?
Yes.
Councilman Rivera?
Through the chair, just clarification, and I guess the police chief could probably answer, and also, so all the arrests that occurred last year and in previous years, it was for using.
Possessing dangerous fireworks. Would that be right, Chief? Because
Were they
possession is the criminal violation.
Correct, possession.
And what was the penalty?
The penalty ranged, the penalty was set by the San Mateo County courts, and that penalty ranged anywhere from $115 all the way up to $240.
Okay. So, and that was all handled by the county and the district attorney and all that. So now you're saying that if we have this ordinance and we set it at, say, $1,000 like Pacifica has, then we would recover.
That's right. The chief and his personnel would have the option, such that if they found somebody with in possession of 25 pounds or less of dangerous fireworks, they could say, okay, you know what, buddy, we're going to give you a ticket, and if it's a first offense, it depends what the city council sets it up as, but just assume it's $1,000. He could issue that, or he could say, you know what, you've been such a problem, and I see all these other issues around you. I'm carting you off to be arrested, and we'll let the DA deal with you.
Also, does this, what's the right term? Is it less work for the police officer to issue this citation than it would to issue the citation that we've been doing in the past?
we're exploring that. I think the main thing is that we want to deter the illegal use of fireworks. So one question that we're looking at is, do we still bring because currently right now, or what we've done in the years past is we bring a violator into the station, we photograph them, we collect the evidence, and we make it as inconvenient as we can to try and send that message that don't use illegal fireworks in San Bruno. We want to have that same impact with this administrative citation. So if it creates a little more work for the officer, it's okay, because we're trying to send that message.
And the chief has asked me to follow up on that with him, but my non-researched answer to that is yes, he can probably do that, because we need for the police to collect the evidence, even for an administrative citation, because the person is entitled to a hearing, and so the city has to be in a position to defend that.
Okay. Well, I remember past discussions in past years that it was, a concern was that you catch a violator and you pretty much take that officer out of the loop for a couple hours, if not longer, you know, on say on that busy night of 4th of July. So
that's one reason why we staff up so much, and it's about 30 minutes. But that is one reason why we staff so heavy on that night, for the enforcement purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from council? Comments? My opinion is that I think, you know, we definitely want to deter this, and we should have, you know, $1,000 fine, especially when Pacific is doing it. As far as public display, I think it would be rare that we would have one, but I would hate to have an ordinance that completely precludes it. You know, Tanforan used to have public displays, and they were pretty tightly regulated. It would give an opportunity to come before us. You know, we've had a 25-acre site across from Tanforan developed that perhaps at a groundbreaking, maybe they wanted something there, but there's enough regulation in those types of commercial public displays. As you said, it's not for private parties, it's not for, it would strictly be for a commercial display through the state fire marshal. By the time they go through the red tape, they might even get tired of attempting to do it, but there's enough protection there, and I think we should leave that opportunity in the ordinance if they want to go through that.
Through the chair, I would also echo on the $1,000. I think the message needs to be sent, not the third time, but the first time. And so I would suggest strongly the $1,000 across the board. On the public display, even if wanting to keep it, I think it needs to be tightened up. I know the mayor's said commercial, but I don't want to see where a group can go ahead and do it. We'll have the 4-H wants to do something, and a particular church wants to do something, and they can go through the process. I know they have to go through the state, and there's red tape, but I'd like to see it tightened up so it's for public entity only, meaning that everyone has to be able to view and or enjoy. It's not some private, out of the way or on private property that we can't control, or that it's and yes, I know you can look up in the sky, but I just want it tighter so that it's less of an opportunity for those type of events to occur.
Yeah, I would concur with that. That's not a problem.
I agree.
Just one thing, the draft ordinance stated council direction for first and second offense, and then stated $1,000 for the third or greater offense.
Yeah, the comment from 3 of the council members so far was $1,000 across the board, first, second, and third. The city attorney discouraged going any higher than $1,000 in any citation, but certainly if they violated it 3 times, they would have a cumulative $3,000 citation.
All right.
I have a speaker. I need you to give your name and street location, please.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor. Dennis Revelle, President of Revelle Communications, Sacramento, California. I'm here appearing on behalf of our client, TNT Fireworks, who are the wholesale provider of fireworks for 14 out of the 17 San Bruno nonprofit organizations. I'm here to strongly support the city attorney's staff report and recommendation. As one of the driving proponents and co-writers of SB 839, the city attorney has adroitly pointed out that we had 2 goals. One was within the limitations that the state legislature allowed because of the federal correction lawsuit. We could not increase criminal penalties for illegal fireworks violators. So we tried to the maximum extent possible to increase the financial penalties for the large traffickers. At the same time, we knew historically and anecdotally that communities such as San Bruno needed a streamlined procedure in order to enforce the casual user of illegal fireworks and bring a revenue stream to those jurisdictions which heretofore you've not had. All the money that has been levied in any criminal prosecution before 2008, before January 1 of 2008, all went to the state general fund. You did not see any of it unless, as part of the criminal process, you submitted a cost bill. And only then it was at the discretion of the court as to whether that was awarded. Secondly, we wanted penalties that were substantial enough to deter the activity. As I pointed out in my correspondence to you, the jurisdictions that have implemented this so far, as Ms. Thompson has pointed out, there are some jurisdictions that have higher fines. I would agree with her recommendation that $1,000 under the government code is probably the proper and appropriate violation level to avoid any challenges to it. But the city of Palmdale is the only jurisdiction I know that has exceeded that. Theirs is $2,500 first violation, $5,000 second, $10,000 third. The city that was the first to implement this, the city of Chino, had 107 citations in the first year. They collected on 100 out of those 107 at $1,000 a pop. The next year, it dropped down to 22. So it had a significant impact on the use of illegal fireworks and the presence of illegal fireworks in that community. In terms of the question that Councilmember Ibarra asked about the amount of time and the impact on personnel services, particularly police or fire, under SB 839, the agency that issues the ticket is the one that gets the revenue. It does not come into the city's general fund. It comes into that particular agency's budget. So if police issues the ticket, they get the revenue. If fire issues the ticket, they get the revenue, minus the state disposal fee. Currently, the regulations have not been promulgated or passed that will impact the disposal fee, but the state has publicly announced that it will not exceed $250 or 25% of the fee. So at a minimum, if it's a $1,000 fee or fine, you'll be able to keep $750 of that. The jurisdictions that have imposed it already are deputizing other city personnel to deal with it, so that in addition to police and fire personnel, City of Chino, City of Palmdale, and others are utilizing code enforcement officers, meter readers, parking enforcement folks, everything, so that the low-end casual user, a couple kids coming up on them in a parking lot, that individual is confiscating, issuing the ticket just as if it were a parking ticket or similar code enforcement violation, confiscating the materials and taking them and issuing the ticket. If it's a minor, they're issuing the ticket to not only the minor, but the supervising or responsible adult. And that is one of the reasons, and Pamela and I have talked about it, that the responsible person definition that's in the model ordinance drafted by the state fire marshal, which was drafted in consultation with about 6 city attorneys throughout the state, to try and give as broad a parameters for you as a jurisdiction to enforce as possible.
I appreciate your comments, and we're well aware of this. We've received most of it. I do need to ask you to wrap up your comments, so you've well exceeded your 3 minutes, even though the clerk neglected to put your light on.
Okay,
so
I apologize.
If you could wrap up, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
The final comment I would make is that some accommodation, since in Chief Telford's report about the fees that are assessed to the nonprofit organizations as part of the enforcement cost, is that some accommodation be made for where the enforcement time is allocated to this citation process, that time not be allocated in the fee schedule that's imposed upon the nonprofits, because the city is obviously already getting that revenue for that activity, just as they would for parking ticket, a traffic citation. And
Well, that's nothing we can address at this meeting since we don't even have the citation process in place, but thank you very much. City Attorney, do you have the information that you need to move forward, or do you have any other questions from council?